I was sitting on the porch of my cabin, the smell of pine thick in the morning air, watching the sunlight slice through the branches like golden blades. My coffee steamed in the ceramic mug, warm against my hands, and for a moment, everything felt calm, peaceful, like life had finally slowed down. Then my phone buzzed, jarring me out of the quiet. It was Karen Whitfield, the HOA president from the neighborhood that edged the forest. Her voice came through, sharp and cold, cutting across the speaker. "Mr. Johnson, someone's filed a complaint about your property line. You're in violation." I felt my stomach tighten, my fingers gripping the mug a little too hard. I tried to keep my voice calm, steady. "Karen, my cabin is in the woods. The nearest neighbor is half a mile away. Who even cares? You don't get to decide," she snapped. "I'm sending enforcement. If you don't comply, there will be consequences. You'll regret this." I stared at the phone, trying to breathe slowly, telling myself this was absurd, that I had every right to be here. The forest had been my sanctuary for 3 years. No one had ever bothered me. No HOA rules reached this deep into the pines. Until she decided that her new sense of authority extended into my life. The hum of the morning birds couldn't drown out the tension tightening in my chest. Something was coming. Something I didn't yet understand. The next morning, I heard tires crunching against the gravel driveway. I squinted through the mist and saw 2 men stepping out of a black SUV, wearing dark uniforms. They weren't police, but their badges glinted in the morning light. "Mr. Johnson?" one asked. His tone was controlled, professional, like he'd done this 100 times before. "Homeowners Association enforcement. You must vacate the property immediately." My coffee trembled in my hand. "Excuse me?" I asked, voice rising, disbelief threading every word. "This is my property. You are not authorized to do anything here." The taller man moved closer, his boots crunching the gravel, hands brushing the SUV doors. Karen appeared at the edge of the driveway, waving papers aggressively. "See, he's non-compliant. Enforcement is following protocol," she shouted. My heart pounded, adrenaline spiking as I tried to remain calm. "Karen, you've lost it. This is my land. You have no authority here," I yelled back, my voice echoing through the trees. George, a timid neighbor who often peered out nervously, called from across the way. Maybe just comply, Mr. Johnson?" I shook my head. "George, you don't understand. These people are fakes." Karen's face contorted with rage. "Fake, you'll see. You'll all see." The men stepped closer, and I felt a surge of panic as my options narrowed. I considered calling the police, grabbing a weapon, or barricading myself inside, but my instincts told me to stay calm, to measure my moves. Then the air changed, a low rumble coming from the tree line. I blinked. Another convoy of black SUVs tore through the edge of the forest, kicking up dirt and leaves, moving with military precision. 6 men in tactical gear leapt out, shadows in the sunlight, and the fake HOA enforcers froze. Karen screamed, a high-pitched, frantic sound that bounced off the trees. "What is this? Who are they?" I didn't answer. I stood rooted to the porch, my heart pounding, watching the unexpected backup spread around the driveway. I couldn't even process relief yet, only the sharp sting of fear mixed with adrenaline. This was not supposed to happen. My sanctuary had turned into a stage for confrontation, a war of wills between me and people who had no business here. And through it all, the forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting for what would happen next. After the first confrontation, the days felt like a slow-burning nightmare. Karen and her HOA crew seemed to materialize everywhere at once, filing fines I had never seen, posting absurd rules online, and whispering behind their hands to anyone who would listen. Every time I stepped outside, I felt their eyes on me, imagining them sneaking around my cabin, jotting notes, plotting the next petty attack. The peaceful forest air now carried a tension that pressed against my chest, heavy and suffocating, as if even the trees were watching me warily. I started leaving cameras up, documenting every inch of the property, every interaction, desperate to prove what was happening. One afternoon, Karen stormed onto the driveway, red-faced and glaring, clutching another ridiculous complaint. "Your fire pit is too close to the property line," she shouted, waving a paper like a sword. "You're endangering the neighborhood." I leaned against the railing, trying to keep my voice even. "Karen, the property line hasn't existed for decades, and this fire pit is safe. I built it myself." She sneered, her lips tight. "Mapsly! You think you're clever, but enforcement is coming." I shook my head, trying to contain my frustration. knowing she thrived on making me feel trapped, on eroding my calm. Her henchman, a woman named Linda, whispered to her from the edge of the driveway. "Maybe we should call the authorities again?" Karen's glare snapped toward her. "No, Linda, not yet. We need him off his property first. He won't comply on his own." I watched, pulse quickening, heart hammering in my chest. Every word, every glance was a weapon in their psychological assault. The calm I'd felt for years in this forest had vanished, replaced by constant tension, the kind that makes your stomach churn and your hands shake. Even George, the timid neighbor, seemed to falter under the pressure. He approached my porch one morning, voice low. Maybe just compromise? "They look serious." I shook my head. "George, these aren't serious. They're bullying me, and I'm not leaving my home for this." My voice was firm, but inside, frustration and anger twisted like a knot. Every attempt to maintain peace seemed to backfire. Every step I took toward calm brought another wave of harassment. The forest felt smaller, the shadows longer, as if the trees themselves were closing in with them. Karen returned again at sunset, her energy electric with fury. "Your cabin is too modern," she hissed. "It disrupts the neighborhood aesthetic." I laughed, though it sounded hollow, bitter. "Karen, this is my home. I built it with my hands. No HOA rule can dictate my life." She leaned forward, rage palpable, and barked. "You'll regret this, Mr. Johnson." I clenched my fists, refusing to back down, but the dread in my chest deepened. The harassment wasn't just physical or verbal. It was emotional warfare. Every note, every online post, every inspection felt like a personal attack. The tension gnawed at me, making the cabin, my sanctuary, feel like a prison. I pored over property maps, legal documents, anything I could find to defend myself. And just when I thought I might finally get a moment of peace, the unmistakable rumble returned from the tree line. My pulse spiked. 6 black SUVs tore through the edge of the forest, kicking up dust and debris. The seals emerged like shadows from the trees, moving silently but with lethal precision, scanning the perimeter. Karen froze, her screams echoing through the driveway. What is this?" Her cronies scattered, confusion and fear replacing their usual smug arrogance. I stood on the porch, chest tight, watching it all unfold. Relief mingled with adrenaline, but deep down, I knew this confrontation was only beginning, and the forest held secrets yet to reveal. I spent hours going over every HOA document, property deed and local law I could find, my cabin lit only by the soft glow of a single lamp. Every time Karen tried to challenge me, I realized she had overstepped her authority in every single eviction attempt. Every fine she filed, every rule she claimed I had violated, was technically invalid. My pulse raced with both excitement and tension. I wasn't just preparing to defend myself anymore. I was preparing to turn the tables, to take control of a battle that had been raging in my backyard for weeks. The next morning, Karen arrived, storming up the driveway with her usual intensity, papers in hand, ready for confrontation. I stepped outside, calmly motioning her over. "Karen, before you try anything again, you need to see this," I said, sliding a stack of meticulously organized documents across the table. Her eyes narrowed, suspicion and fury flashing in equal measure. "What is this?" she demanded. I met her gaze steadily, refusing to flinch. "This," I said, "is every attempt you've made to harass me, every violation, every absurd claim, documented and filed, and every single one is legally invalid." She leaned in closer, anger boiling over. "You can't," she began, but I held up my hand. "I can, Karen, and now, you're about to see exactly what happens when someone impersonates law enforcement on my property." My chest tightened, adrenaline mixing with satisfaction. I didn't have to threaten. The presence of the seals standing silently in the tree line spoke louder than words. Their tactical gear glinted in the morning sun, and the forest seemed to lean in, watching the drama unfold. Karen's confidence wavered, a flicker of fear crossing her face. I felt a surge of control as the seals positioned themselves strategically around the driveway, scanning every angle, their movements silent but commanding. This is intimidation," Karen shrieked, her voice cracking with desperation. I smirked slightly, feeling the power shift. "No, Karen," I said slowly, deliberately. "This is reality. Your little reign ends here. Your authority stops at the property line. Everything beyond that line is mine, legally and morally." Her cronies looked like deer caught in headlights, muttering excuses and scrambling to retreat. unsure of what to do next. The tension was electric. I could feel it vibrating through the forest, through the cabin walls, even through my own hands. I had never felt more alive, more in control of a situation that had started as harassment and turned into a full-blown psychological and legal battle. My heart pounded, but I stayed calm, watching Karen's face twist from rage to disbelief, finally cracking under the weight of her own hubris. The SEAL's presence had already neutralized any attempt at aggression, and Karen's threats sounded hollow in the early morning light. I leaned against the porch railing, letting a slow breath out. Every document, every preparation, every hour of planning had led to this moment. The cabin, once under siege, now felt like a fortress, a place where I could finally stand without fear. Karen's screams echoed off the trees, but they no longer carried power. She was just another person who had underestimated the forest, underestimated me, underestimated what I was willing to fight for. And yet, as I watched her storm off, muttering threats that barely registered, I knew the battle wasn't completely over. Karen was relentless. She had resources, connections, and an ego that refused to accept defeat. I sipped my coffee, feeling the forest's stillness return. But a small, uneasy tension lingered. The SEALs melted back into the shadows of the trees, leaving me with the understanding that control was temporary, vigilance was permanent, and the next encounter could come at any moment. Can you believe what she tried to pull? Comment below and tell me what you would have done if fake cops showed up at your door. Have you ever dealt with someone like Karen in your life? I want to hear your story. Drop it in the comments. Smash that like button if you're rooting for me. And don't forget to subscribe, because you won't believe what happens in the next showdown. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter. Trust me, things are only going to get crazier. And if you think this is intense, share this video with someone who needs to see how far people will go when they underestimate you.